I think we all have like goals and aspirations of like showing in certain galleries or um, going to certain residencies or traveling the world. But I think sometimes that's a bit overwhelming to like put that much pressure on like that is what success is.
Mhm.
And now I've kind of just simplified it to like if you get into the studio every day and you just are making something that you feel connected to, like that's even a bigger success. Like if it's feeling really good. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's just all about like that discipline of like, okay, I'm going, I'll get there eventually. I'm happy, like I'm playing with paint, like that's good enough. Like that is a big success to do that. And it's kind of a privilege to just be able to do that as often as you can. So I don't take that lightly and I try to just work as much as I can. Eventually, the work will feel successful too, even when it doesn't, and you're just in there moving paint around.
Hannah Lindo, how are you?
Oh, that's good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for agreeing to come on. Let's do this. So I first saw your work in I think it was 2022 when I look at your CV at a show at Lady Volkus in Kansas City, and I loved it immediately. I'm a big fan of your painting, and and then so I started taking pictures, following you on social media, and as you know, I'm an artist in Kansas City, and just a big fan of art. And then a few years later, I think we messaged a little bit, and then I ended up buying a painting from you last year. And I have it right here, Marvin's Tree.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah, so that painting I made back in grad school. It probably was at the Leedy show too. I can't remember. It was definitely part of my thesis work. And it's a tree that's in Marvin Grove, which is on the KU campus. And I went and painted it from life. Um, I want to say it was probably the fall semester. So there's still some leaves on there, but the bark just had so many fun colors in it and it shifted on the outside. And then the tree had a hollow inside of it. And it's like, oh, it was just so fun to see those colors shift in the bark. That was really all. It was kind of just a study, a quick plein air painting. But then that kind of texture and the forms of that tree came along later to really inform my thesis work.
Mhm. And then, yeah, I'm so glad it's not one of the paintings that you sold at that time so that it could end up in my house. Um, I love it. Um, Tell me, let's go through some questions here. So a little like biographical information about Hannah. You were born in Garden City, Kansas. You
Yep.
were raised in Garden City, Kansas. You did the smart thing, went to community college to save money, and then went
Yep.
to Fort Hays State University to get your bachelor's in art and drawing. Is that right?
Yep. Bachelor of Fine Art and Painting and Drawing.
Okay. And then you worked
Yeah.
for a little bit, and then you did your MFA at KU in
Yep.
painting and drawing.
Yeah.
Cool. And then from there, tell me about what you do now.
Yeah, so after I graduated, I worked for a year at KU teaching painting and a little bit of life drawing. And then after that, I got a job as an artist in resident and adjunct instructor at the University of Central Missouri, where I teach a painting class and a life drawing class and do some little extra things on the side. So I'm currently doing that. I'm going back for another year there, hopefully maybe 2 years. We'll see. It's a new kind of position, but it's really great to do painting and drawing and still have enough studio time to like be building my own body of work at the
Mhm.
same time.
Yeah. Tell me about your studio practice now.
Yeah, so after I graduated, so I have a twin brother who's also a painter who went to the same program. So him and I and a few other friends um, after we graduated, we started the Lawrence Paint House, which we rented a house which has a bunch of studio spaces in it, and we all just have studios in there. No one lives here. I'm actually in it now in my space, and I try, if I'm lucky, to come in almost every day for at least 3 to 4 hours, if not
Mhm.
more. Um, my studio practice now is kind of shifted. I'm kind of in this new body of work with the paintings on the wall, where I'm kind of creating my own source to work from. I recently found a bunch of childhood colorful rocks, and kind of the wonder and amazement that I had as a kid came back as an adult now. So I did a few paintings of those, and then I recently started building my own rocks out of paint scraps that I collect.
Hmm.
So that's kind of this painting here. It's a paint rock. And then this painting over here, I'm kind of starting to explore the world of paint. Like I'm a lot of my school work was like the life of paint and how it has different stages and lives just in the material of oil paint. So I started to think, oh, like I'm thinking of paint as a living being, like what's the world around this being? So I'm kind of starting to build a world for these things to exist in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about, so you're in that house right now that you rent this house with some friends that you call the Lawrence Paint House. And it's like you walk there from where you live or you drive there. What's a normal?
No, I drive there. It's about like a 5 minute drive.
Okay.
Um, it's just like a little duplex. I think there's five of us in here, and we have two nice big living rooms. We recently got a chop saw so we can start building our own stretchers and panels and
Nice.
kind of keep it all in house. Yeah.
So it's a duplex. You're one side of the duplex or you're both sides?
Yep. Yeah, just one side for now.
Okay. There's a
Eventually, like to get
family
like
in the
the
other
real.
side.
Yeah, there is a family on the other side, so I'm trying to be mindful of the noise.
Nice.
Yeah, but
Nice.
yeah,
Okay. Um, that's great. Let's jump into, before we go farther, let me share my screen and show viewers some of your work that I first saw. Do you see that?
yeah, there it is.
Cool. So I'm on your website
Oh, cool.
and congealed.
Yeah, I haven't looked at some of these in a while.
Yeah, I figured that might be the case because these are
Yeah.
from 2022,
Hmm.
2 years ago. I love this one. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah, that one is really fun. I got kind of crazy and carved into the panel with that one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, up
Yeah,
top.
kind of like a woodworking piece, a crazy woodworking piece.
I love it. Do you set out normally like what you're going to paint before you get to it, or do you just see where it goes?
Um, it kind of depends. Like with this work, a lot of it was reacting to the paint and the surface. Like I had an idea of wanting to combine like the landscape and the body. I was really interested in those ideas. And some would be done from observation. Some I would just make up from memories. Now, like I've made work also that's been directly from observation, either from life or from photo. And sometimes that's a little bit easier to kind of know like where the end is going to be or what it's going to be. But then I also really love that like exploring and discovery process, similar to this work where I have to work and then eventually the image will come through the process.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so where did this big one end up? Did this end up
Um,
somewhere?
It's in my basement in this
Oh
the paint
no.
house.
Okay.
Yep. Just hanging out.
For now.
Big. Yeah, for now.
I love it. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
But you sold several of these at your in grad
Yeah,
school
a
or
lot of
in
the
your
smaller ones I've sold.
school. I love
Yeah.
I love that too. I love the colors, like just
Yeah.
so much red and brown, and a little bit of green.
Those
Growth.
last
Okay.
kind of three paintings that you've shown are probably my favorite from that whole series. Like that, I just felt so connected and it really hit what I was trying to like capture with that body of work
Yeah.
of this growth, both in landscape and in the body happening.
Hmm. Oh, it's so good. That one does it for me for sure. And then I feel like since then you've done a lot of more figurative stuff. You do a lot of self-portraits.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to show this one because I really like it. Even though it's funny from your caption, this is over on your Instagram. It says that you're not sure about that piece. I don't know how you feel about it now, but I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm still not sure about it. I see it and it's also in the basement at the paint house and I see it and I'm like, hmm. what was I doing? I think I was still trying, it was like after grad school, and you're like, oh, what do I even want to do? So I'm like, okay,
Uh-huh.
maybe I'll be a little more literal or representational with the body aspect of the body and landscape coming together. So it was like this person growing out of dirt. I was also
Mhm.
really interested just in dirt at that time. I did a lot of just mud paintings.
Mhm.
Um, so I was trying to kind of
On
combine
what? Like on concrete or like
on panel
on
with a
panel?
lot of thick oil paint. So there's like all the little flowers in that one, or the little colors, are paint scraps of dried oil paint that I kind of collaged back in. And like that surface
Oh
is
wow.
pretty thick and chunky. Yeah.
And it's huge because I like in looking at it, I'm like, oh, I love this painting, but I wouldn't expect it to be 24 by 36 inches.
Oh
And
yeah.
I just noticed that in the caption. So this is 3 feet wide. Um,
Hmm.
this is like a very big face, this painting. That's interesting. I always feel weird whenever if I paint something that's like bigger than what it would be in real life,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
Like I feel like I could do it life size or smaller than life size, but then when it's bigger, I start to feel strange about like what I'm saying, you know?
Oh, yeah. I'm kind of the
Um,
opposite. Like I can't go small. I have such a hard time. And I
yeah.
recently did some kind of smaller paintings around that size kind of scale. And they just felt clunky. Like my hand just needs to make a big mark.
Uh-huh.
And even with heads, I'm like, if it's not life size or bigger, there's not enough room for me to like get in there and like fiddle around with the brush marks. So it feels so strange. So this one, I'm like, oh, it's kind of a small one.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome. Well, and it also reminds me of Ophelia, like the
yeah,
if the Shakespeare I had pulled that up just a few minutes ago. It reminds me of
yeah.
that. Um,
I remember my professor in undergrad talking about that painting and like, oh, it's just so beautiful. And I think it probably was thinking about that um, when I was working on that other
mhm.
painting.
I love it. Okay. Um, let's talk about your self-portraits because you've made so many
Yeah.
self-portraits and like you have a lot of like goofy selfies and stuff on your Instagram and it's
Hmm.
fun. But yeah, tell me about your relationship with self-portraits.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's just periods of time in the studio where you're either waiting for something to dry or you're not quite sure what you want to do. And a self-portrait is always like easily available. You're right there. You can either take photos or look in a mirror. And it's kind of just a great way to keep going. I think I've kind of struggled since graduating. Like, what exactly do I want to paint, and do I feel connected to it? So some like a self-portrait, like I've always loved doing portraits, and I don't have to pay myself to model or sit there, so I can just easily like I have it right there. And I know my face so well now after painting it so many times that it's like, okay, let's see how many different ways I can explore it. And it kind of just gives you that freedom to explore the paint or how you're setting up the image or the composition or the color of it because you already know the imagery of it. So now you can kind of play around with other aspects of
Hmm.
painting.
And
Mhm.
are you using like usually selfies or the mirror?
Yeah, usually like a lot of it is photo, some is from memory. Um, I think this one, I think I eventually took a photo of it to get the arm and the body, the rest of it, but I think most of the face started just kind of from memory and this idea of like, oh, this warm light from the left, and then it's going to round out to this cool purpley blue shadow on the other side.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, so it's kind of a mixture. I kind of bounce around. If it gets too close, like if I'm trying too hard to replicate the photo, I'll take that source away from myself and be like, no, just look at the painting, like have fun with it. You're getting too tight, and then
Hmm.
it loses like a sense of excitement, or I don't know, I lose interest in it if I get too tight too quick.
Yeah, yeah. What's so you're giving yourself like a little bit of advice right there, like let's step away from the reference photo and just like have fun with it, what's happening in the painting. Do
Yeah.
you find yourself like giving yourself advice while you paint or repeating advice that you've heard from someone else? And what is that?
Oh yeah, I mean that probably is advice I've gotten, like just step back, stop stop trying to create the photo, like react to what's actually happening on the surface, react to the paint. Um, a lot of times, the best advice is like just step away for a bit. Like you're doing too much too fast.
Mhm.
Just take a breather, go make something else, go take a walk. Like you get so in the moment, and I always struggle with like, oh, I just want to see the end result. And like a lot of times it's not about that end result. Like you have to have that in between play time with the painting for it
Yeah.
get kind of where you want it to go. But that's sometimes hard in the moment.
Hmm.
They're in a closet, they're somewhere else. Like I kind of forget, but I'm like the ones I'm actually painting, I'm like, oh, like they're my little babies right now. I couldn't let them go.
It's probably a healthy answer that you're most connected to the ones that you're currently working on. You're not stuck in the past phase. How do you look at success as an artist?
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely changes. I think we all have like goals and aspirations of like showing in certain galleries or um, going to certain residencies or traveling the world. But I think sometimes that's a bit overwhelming to like put that much pressure on like that is what success is.
Mhm.
And now I've kind of just simplified it to like if you get into the studio every day and you just are making something that you feel connected to, like that's even a bigger success. Like if it's feeling really good. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's just all about like that discipline of like, okay, I'm going, I'll get there eventually. I'm happy, like I'm playing with paint, like that's good enough. Like that is a big success to do that. And it's kind of a privilege to just be able to do that as often as you can. So I don't take that lightly and I try to just work as much as I can. Eventually, the work will feel successful too, even when it doesn't, and you're just in there moving paint around.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of how I define. As long as I am making something and I haven't stopped, that's a good enough success for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What do you do with writer's block in terms of making art? Like maybe you kind of already answered it. You just push paint around. What have you done this
Yeah.
meaningful?
So like that's when I'll do like a self-portrait or I'll do some like plein air, go paint outside. Um, yeah, that's it's always so tricky. You're like, what do I do? Then you kind of start to think back to old work and you're like, what was I doing then that made that work? But then
Hmm.
it's different because time has passed and you're like, do I feel connected to that still? Do I even want to go down that rabbit hole? I don't know. So yeah, you just gotta find some visual interest. And it kind of was like those rocks became that visual interest. And I didn't know why at that time. I was like, oh, I just love how they look. I love holding them. I need to paint these. And then from there, kind of exploded into like this other um like world of options that I could paint. And I feel really excited about that now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Let's pivot a little bit to like to you. Um, what's the because I just like I love this question for anyone. What's the weirdest or like worst job that you've ever had?
Definitely, I was a house painter in between undergrad and grad school. So I painted exteriors and interiors, and I thought, oh, I like painting. This would be so fun.
That's
It was
awesome.
awful. It's awful. I'm not that tall. I'm moving around 6 foot ladders. I'm painting outside in the summer heat, and it wasn't for me.
Oh gosh, that's hard labor. Like it's such
Yeah.
work. Your shoulders are just burning and
Yeah, my legs were covered in bruises just climbing those metal ladders every day. And I was like the only female surrounded by all these males. I felt so lonely and it was just awful. And people were like, "Oh, but you're painting." I'm like, "No, I'm literally painting white walls. It's
yeah.
not what I want to
No, it's
do."
not painting at all. It's so different.
No.
It's
Yeah.
so different.
Yeah.
That's good. Do you have
Mhm.
any pet peeves around art or just like general Larry David style gripes?
Um, I guess around art, like that sense of feeling like, oh, like I'm not good enough to look at this or to talk about it or to even understand what the artist, like I felt that for a long time. Like I can't walk in that museum. I don't know half of this stuff or the artist or what they're talking about. That I don't even know how to explain it, but that sense or that feeling that sometimes art puts
Yeah.
off, that
Yeah,
really
it's like
drives.
built. Yeah, when it feels like built to make people insecure, like it's the
Yeah.
language around artist statements that's just like
Mhm.
so dull and just
Yeah.
like wordy, trying to be intellectual
Yeah.
when
Like,
really
what
it's
are you
like
saying?
no, yeah, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be
And they just
that.
like that feeling making you feel less than like you're, oh, you can't understand. Like I'm so highbrow, like high above everybody else. It's like, oh, I hate that feeling,
Yeah.
with certain art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I get that. Um,
Mhm.
I feel the same way. Um, what's the best advice you've ever received in terms of art or the creative life? Like you have a difference. I didn't go to art school, so I
Mhm.
come at it from a different perspective, but at this point I have a lot of um similar knowledge, but not like the firsthand knowledge. So what from either like grad school or other artists that you hang out with or in your collective, what advice have you received that you have internalized and sometimes pass on to others?
Mm. I feel like I think this was probably grad school when I heard this advice, but it's like it's your art. Like you are the one making it. You have to be the one that is so interested and like obsessed with it. It needs to be weird and personal and connected to you because otherwise, like, why are you making it? Because I had this idea of what I thought art was, and like, oh, it probably needs to be political or it needs to be super emotional or something like this to really tug on people's hearts or minds and make them think about a certain thing. And then it was like, oh, I'm trying to make work to fit this bubble that I created. And it's like, no, it has to begin with like, it's your work. What are you interested in? So I've even like written it on like a little post-it note on my wall in my studio, be like, it's your work. You have to you have to be the one that's so interested in it in the beginning, regardless of what it is. And I think that really helped.
So what does the post-it say? It says it's your work.
I guess to be um let's see, where is it at? Yeah, you are making your art, not for someone else,
Nice.
is what it. So yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay, let's wrap up because one of my gripes with art podcasts and stuff is just like they
They're
drag
so
on and on and on and like who has time for all that sometimes.
uh,
So but before we finish, like, do you have any favorite jingles, like TV commercials or radio commercials? You grew up in, like, I hope that you have something fun because you grew up in Kansas. You moved like a little bit east in Kansas, and then you moved a little bit more east to Lawrence, Kansas. You've stayed in Kansas this whole time, but you work in Missouri, where where you teach adjunct professor.
uh
Got any good ones?
I don't have any local ones, and now I feel bad for not thinking about like a Kansas jingle. But if you've heard the prescription Jardians commercial, it's
I
a real
don't. No, I don't know
it's
this one.
stuck in my head every time. You'll have to YouTube it or Google it.
No, you
It's
have to
it's
sing it.
no, no, I can't sing.
You can sing it. Yeah,
No, no,
yeah, you
no,
have to
no,
sing
no.
it. Come
It's
on.
about lowering your A1C. And there's a little dance. Like I won't do it any justice. So you
You
got to
can
watch.
sing it. Okay, you can sing it or do the little dance.
No, no, I'm a painter. I don't do either of those on camera.
All right.
Nope, sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna look up the
It's the
A1C
Jardy.
jargon.
Yep. Jardians.
Jardians. Okay.
Jardians. It's a real good one. You're gonna
Jardian.
be singing it all day. Yep.
All right. Well, if you change your mind, you want to sing it, you send it to
Nope.
me, but the one thing that we edit and put in the video.
Nope. You could play the actual commercial. That's probably good. Not that I'm
I
promoting it, but it's a good song.
The thing is, I don't know what I'm doing at all. So this is hopefully one take, and then I just upload it to YouTube, and
Yeah.
it's hopefully good for your collectors and your fans, and
Yeah.
and I'm one of them. So
Well,
it's great privilege to get to know you better, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. This was really great. And I look forward to seeing all the other artist interviews that you do.
Yeah. Thanks, Hannah. Have a good
Cool.
one.
Thank you. You too.